Would it make you a jerk for cutting off your kids' tuitions if they didn't follow all of the rules you set? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, I ordered a delicious deep dish pizza and left a 10-cent tip. It was my first time trying this place that my dad recommended. I ordered a sausage deep dish pizza with extra sauce. I left a 10-cent tip in my online order because I was picking up carryout. Well, these guys both seemed pretty ticked, gave me a dirty look. Take your grubby tip. I think it would have been okay to give 0 tip because it's carryout. The real problem is that the pizza was to die for, and I'm kind of afraid to go back now. I know the story was short and sweet, but I think it proposes a great question, which is, if it's carryout, do you leave a tip, or should you feel obligated in any way to leave a tip? Because personally, and I don't know if people are going to lambaste me for this or not, but I don't believe if I'm doing carryout that I should leave a tip. I could understand maybe if you argue for like a bar and grill or a slightly fancier place, but even then, it's still just shoveling everything into takeout containers for 2 minutes. I think things would have been completely fine if OP didn't leave a tip. The problem is they left a 10-cent tip. If you leave a 10-cent tip anywhere, it's almost like a purposeful, I don't like you for whatever reason. It's like if you look at that receipt and there's no tip, their eyes would have just rolled right off of it, but because they left that 10-cent tip, there's like a glaring red block that just says, I intentionally stiffed you. Amelius Returns commented, giving a comically small tip is way more insulting than just not giving a tip. Nobody's gonna think much of it if you don't tip on pickup, but giving the dude 10 cents is a big middle finger. Amelia Clea 1 commented, yeah, my parents used to do this when we went to restaurants when I was growing up. My mom was a cheap butt and constantly looking for reasons to justify not tipping, and when she found that reason, she also made sure that the server knew it wasn't an oversight by leaving a single penny as a freak you. It was so embarrassing. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether these Redditors are massive jerks or not, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is Assumption and Changing an Order. I've waited tables for the last 3 years. During my shift last night, a group of 4 women in their late 20s came in. They were a pleasure to have as customers. They ordered 4 of our house cocktails to start with, and then went over the menu for their entrees. When I was on my way back to their booth with the drinks on a tray, I walked by the back side and overheard one of them talking about how she was 14 weeks along. When I rounded back, they were talking about the same topic, and it was clear to me that she was pregnant. I figured her having 1 drink wasn't a big deal. They ordered their entrees and I went off to handle other tables. About 5 minutes later, they called me over again and asked for another round. At this point, I started getting concerned, but I took the order and cheerfully said I'd be right back. This time I went to the bartender and asked him to make one of them a virgin cocktail. He was confused, but since he's a good friend of mine, I told him to just trust me. A few cocktails later, hers, strictly virgin, they started getting rowdy and Mrs. Pregnant Woman was also getting into it. I figured that since she didn't notice, things were okay. The problem came when I took them their check and they asked to split the bill at the register. When Mrs. Pregnant Woman got to the counter, I saw her cocktails were marked with virgin. My bartender had edited each in the system for inventory. It was too late for me to edit them back, so I just had her pay, hoping that she wouldn't look at the receipt. They all thanked me and left, leaving a generous tip in the process. They were talking in the parking lot for the next short while, presumably waiting for an Uber. Several minutes later, Mrs. Pregnant Woman came back and asked what virgin on the receipt meant. I fessed up that it meant non-alcoholic. She blank stared at me for a few seconds and then asked if she had ordered a non-alcoholic cocktail. I said no, but told her that I assumed she wanted one, seeing as she was pregnant. It was a lame lie, and I'll admit it, but she looked me in the eye and asked me to return her part of the tip. I did so. Then she talked to my manager. My manager took me into her office and literally shrieked at me until hoarse. I stood my ground and told her that I'm not going to be responsible for fetal alcohol syndrome. She told me that she was taking me off of the calendar until she decided what to do with me. She also informed me that I could get the restaurant in serious trouble for discrimination. And upon examination of my state's laws, she is correct. But when I talked to my mother and father about it tonight, they told me that they understood my position. The entire staff at the restaurant is against me, and I think that I'm going to call in and tell my manager that I quit, but I still feel in the right here. I would like some perspective on this and if I'm the jerk here. So this one is pretty conflicting because if you know without a shadow of a doubt that this woman said, I am 14 weeks along, I am pregnant, as the waiter, I would imagine you should have some kind of hang up about serving them alcohol. The problem, in my opinion, and I'm curious if you guys agree, is that OP went about it all wrong. In that situation, I think you should just go straight for the manager and say, I cannot in good conscience serve these people. I overheard her saying she was pregnant and I can't serve her alcohol knowing that. If your manager then wants to lambast you and fire you because you refuse to serve a pregnant woman alcohol, now I think that's a hill you can die on. The hill you can't die on is alter somebody's order behind their backs without them ever knowing and serving that to them. Morally right or wrong. The Nyuxi commented, I honestly don't understand why don't alter people's food without them knowing and agreeing seemed to be such a wild idea. Where I live, this is very common. I lost the count of how many times I ordered sugarless or low fat and got a regular version because you need it. Like, yeah, sure, I probably do. Not the barista's call to make though, just like it wasn't OP's call to make. They could have misunderstood. The woman could be planning to terminate pregnancy, or it could just be a terrible decision, in which case denying service is more ethical than altering the drink. Striker Fan 2008 commented, where I live, it's illegal as heck. I can understand good intention, but what if someone gave you almond milk and coffee besides dairy because it's healthier without knowing and you're allergic or lactose intolerant? It can also be rude. Some people can take it as, are you saying I'm fat? Are you saying I need to lose weight? I wouldn't, but still. This next story's called LOL Can't Remember What He Said. Me, 53-year-old male, her, 40s. This is the Dollar Tree. There's a line of about 6 people. There was a kid in front of me, he's about 9 or 10 years old. I have one item. As the line starts to move forward, his mom shows up with a cart full of stuff. She looked at me and explained that she was his mom. I kind of gave her a dirty look and then I sort of meekly objected, and then she said he was in line. Edit, I want to be absolutely clear that she was not in line beforehand. I'm getting a lot of replies saying how they were in line first. Incorrect, she was never in line at any point until our interaction. I thought about it for a moment and then I spoke up again and told her she shouldn't be having him hold her place in line. I think I said, you can't have him hold your place in line. He didn't have anything in his hand. She objected and said that he was holding her place, and we had a little bit of back and forth. I don't remember what I said. I tried to be gentle because of the child right there. There was no cursing or yelling, but I did say something like, I can't remember. I just think I reiterated my point that she can't have him hold her place. Eventually, she acquiesced and let me go ahead. I thanked her and then waited until my turn came up. I paid cash and had exact change ready. As I was leaving, I thanked her again. I did not wait for a response. I feel like this one is actually pretty divisive because there's a comment I'm going to share in just a second that goes in the complete opposite opinion of me, but if I was in the situation OP was in, I'm not gonna lie, I'd be pretty upset that they had their kid run off and hold their place in line. I'm just trying to check out of the Dollar Tree with my one item, and here comes Susan dropping $100 at the Dollar Tree claiming their kid was holding their spot in line. I mean, is it not fair in that situation to be like, come on, I got one item, just let me go? That said, Strangled in Moonlight commented, I'm not sure why OP's so riled up. People do this all the time. Husband in line for wives, kids, grandparents. Just chill. And I thought OP's whole argument of, if she just ran back to get something she forgot she'd have left her cart, was odd. Maybe it was something she couldn't carry, say 3 lamps, or maybe she's got an invisible disability. Hands can't hold things for long, can't carry heavy things, etc. Or maybe she was just worried the kid would climb all over the cart, or run into things and people. Our next story is telling au pair she has to cook herself. Long story short, we've had our au pair for 1.5 months now, and she eats too much. We can stomach the huge increase in grocery bills, but we can't stomach the increase in time and mental power it takes to keep thinking about how and what to cook for her. Also being surprised ourselves when we reach in for dinner and find the food gone. She doesn't cook at all, despite saying that she does during interview and on profile, so she's constantly eating whatever prepared foods we have in our fridge. Short of just telling her, hey, it's becoming a strain on us to constantly have to prepare food for you, so we expect you to cook for yourself in the future, anyone else have some creative solutions we haven't considered? We thought about having her help with prep, but it would also require us to teach. My wife doesn't quite have the patience for that, nor time between nursing, trying to catch sleep for herself, etc. Also with prep, it still doesn't address the fact that we always have to plan with her appetite in mind. We've tried creating a lunchbox for her to help ourselves know how much food we have in the fridge and when we have to cook more, but one, that still puts the burden on us to spend the time to cook for her, and two, she would just finish the lunchbox and take more food from the fridge. There are some other stressors going on and my wife is of the mind to rematch, but we figured we'll give a shot to resolve some of these stressors first, and this is one of them. Although, admittedly, part of the reason we picked her was she kept saying she's pretty independent, including the cooking part, so we also feel a bit lied to in that regard. Edit/update. Thank you to those who have provided some helpful thoughts, tips, and suggestions. After bringing the ideas back to my wife, we came up with a blended game plan and spoke to our AP yesterday, focusing on the extra burden that meal prep and cooking has placed on us. She acknowledged that she's observed that we're often scrambling after work between baby, errands, food, etc. She actually did say that she had thought to help when she first arrived, but was too shy to volunteer. She did also admit that while she used to help her mom cook, it was many years ago when she was much younger. I believe she said it had been 10 plus years since she last cooked, and that where she lived, food was cheap and delivery was nearly free, so she always ate out or ordered delivery, so there was never a need or desire to cook. So, having said that, she agreed to help us starting with prep work, for example, washing, cutting, and then we'll slowly show her how to cook the food. We've not yet discussed if cooking meals will now be a regular team event versus splitting between who cooks. I figure we can cross that bridge after she relearns how to cook. Today, we also asked if there were any recipes she was interested in, either from back home or even just something new she was curious about, to send us the recipe and we could get the groceries for it, and then we could try the recipe out together. She said she's been perfectly happy eating whatever we've been cooking, as she's not a picky eater and likes trying different foods too, but we'll keep the options open. And so tonight was the first evening where she helped us with meal prep. I worked with her to wash and cut the vegetables. My wife then showed her how we cook the vegetables and fish, sea bass, protein of the meal. I did notice she started playing with her phone while watching my wife cook, but I'll remain optimistic and assume she got it all, and was now showcasing her cooking skills to her friends. And we also started using sticky notes in the fridge as well. We'll probably revise or improvise the system as we do it more, but she was on board with it. So if anybody feels lost, an au pair is a person who lives with a family and helps with childcare and housework. So I guess it kind of comes down to, are these people jerks for being blindsided by the fact that bringing this adult in is all of a sudden causing the grocery bill to go up? Or more notably, this person says that they can cook meals for themselves, but then doesn't do that and makes things a little bit harder for everybody there. Personally, I think the bottom line is if they advertise, hey, I can do this, and then proceed to not do that exact thing, it's gonna be pretty frustrating. Katie commented, for some reason this post was suggested to me. I'm not in the income bracket to hire an au pair. I've never been an au pair. And I was like, are these people daft? Like, you brought an entire extra adult into your home, of course your grocery budget is going to increase. Like, I think it's reasonable if the au pair is blowing through all the snacks the day after they do the grocery shopping to figure out a better way to manage inventory. But this guy shot himself in the foot by implying this poor girl is just a greedy fat butt. It seems like he and his wife may eat smaller than average meals or portions. The au pair program is supposed to be a cultural exchange, and they're supposed to be treated as a family member. Insisting she needs to cook meals for them or eat dinner on her own is incredibly rude and against the spirit of the program. Our next story is stolen from 19 kids and counting, right? We have a lot of kids, ages 14 down to age 2, with another baby on the way. Everyone age 4 and up has assigned chores throughout the day, but the biggest portion of them happen after school from 4 to 5 p.m. But it takes a ton of effort to keep them on task. Example of the expectations is for the 14-year-old, pick up dog poop in the backyard, fold and put away his laundry, clean his room that is shared with 2 younger brothers and they all need to help, brush his dog, and collect trash from the main level once a week. I ask each kid to pitch in on what they can handle for their age and then try to hold them accountable for what their assignments are. It's not as stressful on nights when we don't have to rush older kids to get changed into uniforms and out of the door by 5:15 to have my husband take them to activities, because then it's just eating into their free time if it's not done yet. I feel stressed by being left with all the little kids in a chaotic environment, which means I have to watch them closer if it's not tidy and toddler safe, and have to get dinner on the table plus grade my 8th and 7th graders' homeschool assignments while my husband and the helpful kids are out of the house. So I asked my husband, who teleworks, to come out of his office when he's done with work, sometime between 4:30 and 5, to help manage the kids so I'm not doing it alone with so many moving parts. He agreed to help out more, but he doesn't care if kids are actually done or not and still takes off for activities. I don't want them to go if they're not completely done with their chores. My husband thinks I have too high of expectations and shouldn't care if, for example, a kid says they're done but didn't pick up dog poop. I think this teaches them to not be responsible and also has future consequences that directly impact me. Like when the kids are playing in the backyard and come running in with dog poop stuck in their shoes that I now have to clean. This is a reoccurring conflict in our marriage that I want the house to get straightened up at certain points throughout the day because it makes my job as a homeschooling stay-at-home mom easier to monitor for safety if things don't spiral out of control. Am I the jerk for trying to hold kids accountable or for even trying to keep the house picked up? So I kind of see where OP's coming from on this, in the sense that when the kids are doing their chores, you don't want to let them get by saying, "Oh, I'm done," and they're actually not done or haven't even started. My question is, has the husband always been this unhelpful? How do you have so many kids with a guy that's not even really invested in parenting? Taxicabby commented, "I don't understand how if the 14-year-old doesn't do those chores every day that the house becomes unmanageable. If he doesn't fold or put away his laundry, he has laundry to put away every day? Clean his room or brush the dog? How does that really affect the daily functioning of the household? I mean, it seems as though the only general house chores he does are picking up dog poop in the backyard and collecting trash, and according to OP, the trash collecting is once a week. Seems like the compromise here is for mom to insist on poop scooping and only poop scooping on a daily basis. If the kid's room isn't clean or the 14-year-old's laundry isn't folded, how does that matter? Shut the door to the room and stop having kids. You have too many to manage. I also don't believe that anybody in this sort of situation can homeschool with any real aplomb. It's unclear how many kids are actually in this house, but there's a huge age gamut and clearly several of them. It's not as though homeschooling can't be done correctly, but if the teacher has to be running after a 2-year-old and breastfeeding a newborn while trying to teach an 8th grader algebra, a 5th grader geography, and a 1st grader how to read, on top of whatever the heck else is there, and a dog apparently uncontrollably pooping all over the backyard, I refuse to believe that is actually functional. Our next story is typical giant doctor ego. Last year, I finally finished my fellowship and started my first staff nephrologist job. My wife also gave birth to our son and was still on maternity leave. I've told our friends and family that I'm the breadwinner because at the time I was. Although my wife still got paid due to her company maternity leave policy. I think I said it in front of her once, which she didn't comment, but I also said it when she wasn't around. Now she's mad because our friends and family were under the assumption that she's quitting her job to be a stay-at-home mom. She's a product manager and made most of the income for us when I was a resident doctor. I do think I'm the breadwinner now because I make most of the income for us, whereas she did before, but she thinks I can only say that if she quit and I was the sole income earner. She's also mad because everyone thought she was not going back to work. They criticized her for putting our son on wait lists for daycare and hiring a cleaner, etc. I think she's very sensitive about the stay-at-home mom comments, but I didn't ever say she wasn't going back to work or that she was going to be a stay-at-home mom directly. She's mad because everyone took it to mean that, and that even if they didn't take it as such, that it's offensive to her to say I'm the breadwinner when she still makes a sizable portion of the income. To be honest, I kinda think OP is the jerk here because I'm so curious why they're so insistent on being right or defending that they can be called the breadwinner. Is it OP just doesn't want to admit that they're wrong? Or is it because they desperately, for whatever reason, want to be able to call themselves the breadwinner? To be fair, I feel like if I hear I'm the breadwinner, you kind of have this assumption that you're the only partner that works. Or the wage gap at least is like sizable. Like one of those like he makes 80, I make 30. It just feels unnecessary to die on that hill of I'm the breadwinner, especially when it seems to upset your wife. Like, is it really that necessary? Our next story is thinks he owns his children. My wife and I, 54-year-old male, 51-year-old female, have 5 kids. Andy, 19-year-old male, Dan, 19-year-old male, Rachel, 16-year-old female, Liam, 14-year-old male, and Abby, 11-year-old female. About a year ago, Andy and Dan, our 19-year-olds, went off to university, and we agreed to pay their tuition as long as they followed our rules. We found out that Andy was going against our rules through a social media post. He didn't realize we followed both of them to keep tabs on them while they were away. Without getting into it, he wasn't living a way we would support, and we couldn't continue to enable his behavior. We were infuriated, and I tried to talk to him, but our conversation ended in an argument, and I told him good luck being on his own. I cut him off financially and stopped any communication with him, as well as making sure my kids did the same. For a long time, Dan also had no contact with him, as we were going to take his tuition if he didn't do as we asked. He went behind our backs to try getting into contact with him, but couldn't, and it turns out Andy passed away. Dan was devastated and said that we killed his brother and blames us for it. He cut us off and told our kids, which we were against as we didn't want to expose them to what happened and turn them against us. All my kids are now saying that I was a horrible dad and ruined their lives, and Abby cries a lot now because she misses her brother. We had to put her into therapy to get over it. Our entire family knows now, and it's a massive split, but my wife's side, who we both avoid, says we're horrible people now, while most of my side says we were well within our rights to do what we did. I feel very conflicted now since everything is hitting me at once. Was I the jerk for sticking my ground and apparently causing all this? I have a number of thoughts. First of all, you really put this all out there on Reddit? Second of all, OP writing the sentence, we had to put her into therapy to get over it. Get over it referring to the death of their older brother. I don't really know how much more callous you could make that sentence. And lastly, the biggest thing, OP went into great detail talking about their kids and their ages and whatnot, but went to extreme effort of avoiding any kind of talk about what these rules are and what the kids were doing that broke said rules. So really, can anybody even answer OP's question here? There's nothing to even base it off of. But I gotta say, what is there seems pretty appalling on OP's part to me. Individual Plan 5593 commented, he also used money to threaten the other kids into obeying. It sounds like rage bait, but sadly there are actual parents like this. They just wouldn't come to Reddit for advice. Our next story is entitled Not Even Stepmom. I, 30-year-old female, live in a house with my boyfriend, 40-year-old male, our son, 3, and his daughter, 21-year-old female. She pays her third share, $600 a month of the rent, and she pays the entirety of the internet bill, which is around $116 a month. She's paid about $50,000 a year as a maintenance tech for apartments. About 5 nights a week, she'll come home with her girlfriend and play video games. If they come home early enough, they partake in what I've made for dinner. Otherwise, they shut themselves in the bedroom till morning. The other 2 nights, the girlfriend stays at her place and stepdaughter comes alone. Same routine though. I want to ask for her share in the power bill, water bill, and gas. I know her argument will be that she can't afford it. She's had several car accidents, so her car insurance is high. She has a monthly car payment and she takes care of her cats. I can't think of another expense she would have. Maybe this is a no-brainer. I hate talking about money and would honestly just keep it bottled up and look the other way, but one reason I need to bring it up is that I haven't been working since July. I was laid off at the same time I found out I was pregnant and decided to just coast until I had the baby to look for work. Our savings is running out and things are about to get more difficult. I'm due first week of February. Edit, okay, I get it, I'm the jerk. I feel like a bum and I can't wait to go back to work. I think I'll look for some work from home things like some comments suggested. Not going to answer too many comments. It hurts to be called a jerk, even if it's justified. Thanks, Reddit. Maybe I'm just out of touch with my finances, but I don't know if it's like a crazy thing to ask for like a third share of whatever bills. The comment I'm about to point out mentions that the daughter makes about $4,000 a month, roughly. The problem is I'm struggling to even get like a $2,000 deficit from the bills described here, but the comment implies the daughter might not have any extra money left. Like, I don't know, even with like obscene extra bills, they still have like $1,000 surplus a month. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just crazy with my finances and I've got me locked down so well or something, but it sounds workable and like there's a surplus. Long Effective 2898 commented, the daughter is basically her roommate who just so happens to be the daughter of her partner. Let's math, shall we? Daughter makes about $4,000 a month, rent is $600, internet is $120-ish, can't remember exactly. Add in car payment, gas, insurance, and other cost of living expenses, and it's very possible the daughter doesn't have any extra money left. The fact OP's on Reddit instead of talking with her partner about it means she either already knows how he feels or will react, or this is just another case of people don't talk to each other in Am I the Jerk land. This next story is How to Lose Friends 101. So about 2 months ago, my two best friends, Katrina, 21, and Elena, 21, not their real names, and I, 21, had made plans to go to Vegas for our 21st birthdays. Our birthdays are in a span of 2 months. We planned a 21-hour road trip from Texas to Vegas. Originally, we were going to fly, but they couldn't really afford to pay for everything we wanted to do and fly in such a short time. So I thought the next best thing was a road trip. We get to sightsee, it's cheaper the way I planned to get there, and we just had the time. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking to my boyfriend about the trip, and it was brought up that he also has never been to Vegas before. After a lot of thinking, I realized Katrina and Elena don't really know how to drive, and if we actually went on the trip, I would be the one driving the whole 21 hours. I don't know about y'all, but I wouldn't want to be the only one driving 21 hours if I didn't have to. So I thought not only would it be safer for him to be there with us, but I wouldn't have to drive that far by myself. Plus, he offered to pay for some of the excursions we wanted to do and some of the dinners if he could as a gift for letting him come along. Of course, I told him he didn't have to and it was unnecessary, but he insisted. When I told Kat I wanted to invite him, she freaked out and said that this was a girls' trip. No guys the entire time, and to tell him no, she just wanted it to be us. To be honest, we had never called it a girls' trip originally. It was supposed to be a celebration for the three of us. I turned 21 a month ago and I just got my license in the middle of December, and Kat just turned 21 and graduated college early, and Elena just got promoted at work, so really didn't think it would be a big deal. After that conversation, I told him that I wasn't comfortable driving the entire way there, that it wasn't fair for me to drive by myself, and that I wouldn't go if he couldn't, or that we could bring someone else who could help drive. But it had to be someone that I trusted to drive my car. They had no one else in mind, so my boyfriend came along. Unfortunately, during the trip, my boyfriend did end up paying for a bit of their things as gifts, even after I told him not to, because they kept kind of ignoring him until it was time to pay for the dinners. Though he has the money to pay, I didn't think they deserved it for how they were treating him. Now they won't talk to me much, considering all three of us are roommates, and they told some of our friends that they're upset with me for being the girl who brings her boyfriend on a girls' trip, and that I brought him everywhere, and that we, us three girls, had no alone time together, and that I don't care and that I act annoyed when they bring it up. Mind you, I am annoyed. To be honest, I just wanted him to be included while we were together, and there were times during the trip he did stuff by himself and left us alone. And yes, we were all cool before this, but seriously, am I the jerk for this? Now, I don't blame OP one bit if they don't want to be the only one driving on the 21-hour road trip, but if the other two say it's a no-go if the boyfriend comes along, is OP not the jerk for just bringing him along anyways and assuming that everybody's gonna be all happy-go-lucky anyways? Like, what did OP really expect? Mountain Dew Baka Blast commented, "Boy, this OP becomes very pathetic with the justifications in the comments. She's not codependent, she just doesn't think her friends really know how to drive. And so she needs a driver that she trusts to drive her car. And that's a short list that means her boyfriend is there. And no other solutions were considered for the trip, including something like, let's save up more and go by air, or why don't we rent a vehicle so it's not my car on the line, or what if we take your car instead, or just, hey, we can't afford tickets and doing all these activities, let's budget smartly so we can figure out what things we really want to do and what things we can bump off the list so our books will end up all balanced. And honestly, OP is kind of a jerk for dragging the boyfriend along too. She pitched it to him as a safety issue and he clearly knew he wasn't wanted there. He very much knew he wasn't invited on the girls' trip, so he ended up trying to toss cash at the situation to fix it and, well, it still doesn't fix how the purpose of the trip changed so radically and made the majority of the people quite unhappy. So not only did OP let her friends down here, she also apparently has let her boyfriend be the scapegoat. Sure, you can say her friends shouldn't have taken it out on him, but OP still picked him up by the back of his collar and tossed him straight under the bus's crushing wheels. I wouldn't be surprised if OP ends up with no friends and also no boyfriend. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another story that allows you to judge how much of a jerk somebody is, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.